Jamaica being a newly independent country, just like a newly established company, the board of directors must be on one accord. Similarly for an infant, mommy and daddy must be on one accord. And I'm sure you've heard of what happens when too many cooks make the broth. The same thing is true for a nation. At inception, there needs to be one accord, one direction, one unit. While some may argue that this may lead to a tyrannical rule and dictatorship, if done right on a congressional basis, it would drastically reduce the tug of war that followed the bipartisan politics, while incorporating the various ideologies within one party. But the formation of the Jamaica Labour Party divided Jamaica before it started to creep, let alone walk. George Washington, America's first president that spent 2 terms in office, wrote a farewell to the nation after his second term. And in his farewell, he warned the American people of the dangers of political parties. He mentioned, and I quote, "I have already intimated to you the dangers of parties in the state. Let me now take a more comprehensive view and warn you in the most solemn manner against the baneful effects of the spirit of party generally." See, George Washington understood that partisan politics would inevitably lead to corruption and strife, undermining the prosperity of the nation. And on that same breath, the nation succumbed to a national divide that led to a civil war. The founding fathers wept. What we must understand is that the concept of democracy is a fairly new political system. Most nations in history thrived on a monarchical political system. Civilizations such as the Roman Empire, Mongol Empire, Chinese dynasty, ancient Egypt, France, Belgium, England, Russia, Japan, and various tribes in Africa and in the Americas all had a monarchical government, where a royal family ruled or the strongest warrior rules. No voting took place among the masses, and if voting did take place, it was among a small group of councilmen or lords to select a particular figurehead. This system can even be seen in the movie Black Panther, though fictional, exhibited ancient systems of government where T'Challa had to fight M'Baku and Killmonger to maintain rule over Wakanda. It was centuries after this type of political system that the democratic government system was introduced. However, a democratic system, if not set up properly from the outset, can have devastating effects. And this was the destructive power of the Buster-Manley dichotomy. The tug of war began in 1944 when Buster was first elected Premier of Jamaica. And like all modern-day politicians, Manley articulated policies and talking points that would increase the likelihood of securing the next victory, as opposed to policies that would propel Jamaica forward in tandem with Buster's policies. The JLP also won in the 1949 general election. However, the reverse took place in 1955 when the Manley-led PNP won the general election. And of course, Bustamante articulated policies that would increase his likelihood of securing the next election, as opposed to policies to propel the country forward in tandem with Manley's. I know what you're gonna say. It is this fierce competition between the two parties that create better policies, as each party tries to best their opponent. But this kind of party system works best in a mature society, one where the citizens are educated and have at least a basic understanding of good governance in order to hold their leaders to account. But this was not the case in Jamaica at the time. Just imagine this tug of war so early in Jamaica's development. The economy nor society was mature enough for this bipartisan system to thrive, with majority of its population being uneducated and living in poverty. The people were in a vulnerable state, hungry for prosperity and a decent standard of living, and would simply run with anyone who promised them such, no matter how infeasible it was. So to put it bluntly, They wouldn't know a good policy if it slapped them in the face. It was with this ignorance that partisan politics took the Jamaican people on a joyride, and neither of the parties would yield for the benefit of the people.
There's an old saying in the Arab world, a house divided cannot stand for long. It will either perish or lie desolate. The saying may be old, but it still holds.